Hello and welcome back to another Oh No 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 podcast as we look ahead to the visit of Arbroath on Saturday. I am Duncan Cameron and joining me tonight, first of all, it's Scott Fleming. How are you, Scott?
Really good, mate. Glad to hopefully get an episode in again after the nonsense a couple of weeks ago. I was supposed to be on for the St Johnstone pre-match, but the internet just said no that night, so it was just not happening. But no, good to be back on and talking nonsense as ever about the Rovers.
Feels like it's first time in ages that me and you have been on together. Keep missing each other.
It has been a while, to be fair.
And also tonight we've got Blair Hopcroft as well. It's not been ages. We were on the other day. How are you? Anyway.
I'm good, mate. It's nice to have some company in it. All good. Looking forward to another week in the Rovers roller coaster and see what it's got to bring.
Yeah, will be an intriguing one, I think. Arbroath have been the surprise package of the championship so far. Have Ross County been the surprise package? I don't know. Can a surprise package be a bad thing?
It feels a bit like Ross County have been Arbroath and Arbroath have been Ross County. So
yeah,
I'm not sure who's more surprised about that.
I just don't think you're ever like, oh no, a surprise package. Like it's. I don't want to open this. Ross County's in it. So let's go with that. Arbroath have been the surprise package of the championship so far. I mean, it's maybe it's a kind of lazy opinion, but I think most people, me included, you look at the only part-time team in the division, you kind of expect them to struggle, but they are joint second at the moment, along with the Rovers, with 11 points. So they have beaten Queen's Park, they've beaten Airdrie, and they've beaten Ross County, as well as draws with Ayr United and Morton. But their two defeats have been pretty heavy, 3-0 to St Johnstone, 5-0 to Dunfermline. But it's still, obviously, it's an impressive start, nevertheless. Scott, when you look at that, do you kind of take heart from those two defeats? And is that a team that can be got at? Or are you more kind of concerned by the wins that they've racked up?
Yeah, as you say, that they are a bit of a strange one this season because, like, I know that we were talking about just off air there how they are a team that seem to have like no real standout players. It's all it looks very League One, like a League One team with the odd like championship based player in it, but that I don't think that there's any like standouts, as we say, and special players to kind of make them be in sort of third. But obviously they've clearly got a good sort of work ethic, a good team sort of ethos in there as well. Otherwise, they wouldn't be there for a starter. You don't go to, well, I say you don't go easily and win points at Dingwall, but clearly you do this season. So we'll find out soon which watch this, they'll bloody end up stopping that for us. But it's as you say, I don't even know what we're going to see out of Arbroath on Saturday because like the 5-0 that the Pars put on them was just out of nowhere. It felt like I genuinely thought, oh, Dunfermline, see if they get out of there with 0-0 or 1-1, they'll be happy with that as in a decent point away. Gayfield's always a tough sort of away game as well, tight pitch, depending on the weather as well. It can be sort of the second part of you're fighting against two things, not just Arbroath, also the weather. But fair play to Dunfermline for getting a 5-0 win that night. And also St Johnstone. But St Johnstone have been kind of doing that to most teams this season. So I wouldn't even say that them losing 3-0 to St Johnstone was even that bad a result. And albeit I'm sure I heard that from a Saints fan that actually Arbroath played decent that night. Just St Johnstone took their chances when they got them. So, as I say, I feel like I'm just going around in circles with Arbroath. I don't know what to expect out of them.
Yeah, could be a recurring theme in this episode. I mean, looking at the business that they did in the summer, as you say, that there's not really any standouts. There's a good few names that you recognise, and I think you would say is they've got a lot of players who've kind of been the distance before. So obviously we know Arbroath, a lot of players who've been there for a long time anyway, but as I say, the guys that they've brought in, you're looking at like Nikolai Todorov's got seasons and seasons at this level. Craig Watson from Airdrie, Aaron Muirhead from Thistle, who they had on loan at the back end of last season. Like, these are not bad players by any means at all, but yeah, there's no headline grabbers, I suppose. I mean, the one that probably was probably purely a Rovers point of view at this point was Ross Callaghan, who came in from Motherwell, but unfortunately has kind of true to form, sadly, picked up an injury. After a fairly decent start to the season, he got himself a goal in one of his 4 games, but he's been missing for the last kind of 3 or 4. But with all that said, Blair, does that ultimately just point to the fact that David Gold and Colin Hamilton deserve an awful lot of credit if they're putting these results on the board without any real kind of star players?
Yeah, I suppose it does. I always think there's a momentum that carries as well when you quite convincingly win a league. You come up into the championship and you're kind of. I mean, we did the same actually. I remember when we quite rightly won the league in that COVID season that was cut short, and then we came up into the championship. That first quarter is quite generous because nobody's going out to sit in and defend against the newly promoted side. Do you know what I mean? They're the team everybody goes, well, we've got to kind of go at them. We're going to have a go. And so, by its very nature, if you play either decent football or you're good at, like a more direct game like Arbroath used to be, you can catch teams on the hop, certainly the first quarter. And I do wonder if that's kind of part of it. Do you know if it's momentum that's carrying them through from last season, and teams kind of underestimating them slightly. I've only seen them the once, which was the opening day of the season, that game at home to Ayr United, and they looked decent. To be fair, they went 1-0 down really early on, and then and actually with the run of play too. Like Ayr looked decent for that first 5-10 minutes, and then it was like Arbroath kind of woke up and knocked on the door the whole game, but they did look like they were going to be able to go the entire game without scoring. Like it was one of those where they were knocking and knocking, but it felt like it wasn't really coming. So I don't know whether that's going to be a kind of tale of their season too, but this first quarter's been mental. All across the league, even just looking at those results. Do you know what I mean? Dunfermline looked wash, and they beat them 5-0 at Gayfield. You don't win 5-0 at Gayfield. I'd like to know, honestly, the last time Arbroath were beaten 5-0 at home, even in the seasons where they're getting relegated or whatever. It's not a place you go and you get that kind of result. They drew with Morton, but then everybody apart from us apparently draws with Morton. So it's like Scott says, and I think we're going to keep saying, who knows at this point? Because it's such a competitive league. Like every team just seems to be able to take something off of every other team. So you can't go into it like blasé or thinking, it's just Arbroath. They've had a decent start, but you also can't go, oh no, Arbroath are coming to town. Like, it is a really odd one to set up for. It'll be really interesting to see how Robson tackles it and whether he's learned any of the lessons for Saturday in particular.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right about the kind of division as a whole. Like it's weirdly kind of split into two, but only St Johnstone are in the top half. Yeah, I mean, quite literally, St Johnstone are 8 points ahead of us, and we are 8 points off the bottom. That is just that, and as you say, the number of draws in there as well, thanks to Martin. It is pretty compressed. As well as the fact that Morton, County and Airdrie have played 21 games between themselves and haven't won a single game yet.
Yeah, it's mad,
just a really weird kind of opening dynamic. And Arbroath and ourselves really just kind of taking advantage of that. And it's, I think that there was a bit of discussion between me and you after the game on Saturday, and then obviously in the kind of wider support as well about, we were quite crabbit. I was quite crabbit. It was quite a crabbit episode.
It really was.
And then
it wasn't even therapeutic.
No, but we finished up, and it was like, come back next time. We'll talk about the game against the other team who are second. Like, it doesn't quite chime. It doesn't feel like we're in kind of second place. Arbroath, I suspect, probably do feel more like they're in, second place. They're probably a bit happier with themselves. And I mean, I suppose on that kind of general topic, Scott, do you think this game is kind of tone defining, maybe, for this opening quarter, in the sense that, obviously we've kind of drawn with two of what you would think from before the season started would be two of the poorer sides in Airdrie and Queen's Park. Arbroath would probably be the third one in that camp. So if we don't win this, although we're sitting second today, does that suddenly start to look like actually quite a poor quarter?
I think I would struggle to say that even if we fail to beat Arbroath and we just say we got a point on Saturday, I would really find it hard to say that we've had a poor quarter. Even if, again, we got then a draw up at Dingwall the following week, because then that is the end of the quarter. And I mean, yes, it would be then, if it was 2 draws in a row, 13 points. But at the end of the day, you've then really, I know, like you say, on paper at the start of the season, they 3 teams are the teams that you'd be looking to get 9 points out of, or as close to 9 points as you can get. But at the same time, Queen's Park have just went up to Dingwall and won. Airdrie have huffed and puffed in a lot of games, but yet they've also not been comfortably beaten in a lot of their games. It's all been 1-goal games, or they've drawn a couple of games as well. So I don't think these teams are as bad as what I think a lot of people were expecting, or they were expecting maybe a bigger sort of gulf between these 3 and the rest of the league. We're not seeing that yet. It could yet happen later this season, but for the time being, it's not happened. So, yeah, I can only kind of react on how, I would say that, I mean, I was away on a stag do at the weekend, so I missed the game live, but I obviously watched the highlights and seen back in the chat what was getting said and stuff, and you could see that we clearly created some chances, which, going back against Rhys McKay, we weren't doing away at Airdrie, so at least we were able to do it against Danny Lennon's version of Airdrie, but it was frustrating, especially the second half. There was chances to like Easton and Vaughan that we didn't take, and although at the end of the game, obviously them hitting the bar, was kind of glad that we managed to hold on to the clean sheet. But yeah, I think I would, as I said at the start of this point, I would just say that if we finish these next 2 games to finish the quarter unbeaten in these 2 games, I would struggle to see why somebody could come to me and say that's a very poor quarter or anything, considering if we do, it's more than likely we'll be in the top 4.
It's funny the way these things work, because it really takes an overwhelming body of evidence to change how you feel about some teams. Like County, haven't won a game yet.
Yeah.
But then you're still oh, got to go to Dingwall at the end of that.
Yeah.
Where it's should Scud Arbroath, who are joint second with us, a side I've not been that happy with. It's just very, very strange. And it does, it's funny the way that your kind of pre-season expectations go, because at a certain point, just County will sort themselves. They'll have to. But actually, I don't know if there's necessarily evidence for that. They've been pretty bad, and a lot of it seems to come down to the way that their squad is. But anyway, we'll talk about that next week. I mean, Blair, really, in terms of staying on the same topic, I suppose to the point I was making there about we're second, but we don't really kind of feel second. Is it a win against Arbroath that would do that?
No, I think in an answer to that question, no. This honestly feels like one of those games where you're kind of you go into it probably as favourites, which I think is justified on not so much on the body of evidence of the season so far, but just where the two squads are and where the two clubs are. You would expect us to go into this game favourites, especially at home. So if we go out there and we win 2-0, no one cares. It's probably the honest truth. No one's going to. I mean, Rovers fans will be happy with it, but nobody's going to be going, by the way, what a great result. That's superb. But if we go out there and we draw, or we lose, or even if we scrape a win, it feels like this. It sounds so negative again, but it feels like there's quite a lot to lose in a sense, and not a huge amount to gain unless you go out and batter them. And I would say they don't look like a team that can get battered, except they kind of look like a team that can get battered. But they also look like a team that could go out and beat you 1-0 or draw one each. Like it's such a juxtaposition in kind of where their results have been. They seem to be really decent or ridiculous. Do you know what I mean? 5-0 at home at Dunfermline. I've said it already, but it's madness, absolute madness. And we said in the post-match already the other day, the two of us, doesn't feel like we can do that to a team at this point.
Yeah.
So it'd be really interesting to see if we could, but whether that's Saturday or not, I think we can. And that's the thing. He's got the personnel to do it. The more I think about what we spoke about in that post-match about kind of setting them up to play in the right way, the more I'm kind of getting brought round to agreeing with what your kind of overarching point was, that it actually just wasn't, although it was working in the sense of creating chances, it wasn't, like we've said, it was not like we never created anything in 90 minutes, which we've definitely done at Airdrie before. We didn't set up in a way that actually maximised the ability to do that. So maybe he'll make a change for Saturday that'll change that.
I think it'll be interesting as well for Saturday of how Barry Robson sets the team up in terms of in the final third more than anything, because that's where, funny enough, that's where games are won, but that's also where it's where we need to be causing Arbroath problems, because they're going to probably play, I don't know, a 4-5-1, something like that, and they'll be hoping that we are doing sort of direct football, long balls, trying to go in behind them, because at the end of the day, that's what their centre-halves want. Muirhead and is it O'Brien still? They two are going to lap that up all day long. And then they're going to have guys like Cochrane and Flynn probably in the front of them, sweeping everything up, second balls. So I think we're going to have to probably play with probably as much of our sort of skilled and pacey sort of players to try and get in behind them, I would say, as in get behind them on the deck, 1-2s, that sort of. I don't see us beating them by playing very direct. Again, I'm happy to be proved wrong, but I don't see that against Arbroath.
No, I completely agree with you. Like, Aaron Muirhead is just Sean McGinty in a different jersey. Like, they are the same guy.
I'd say Muirhead can play a little bit more football, but like, I get what you mean.
Yeah, like, yeah, aye. That's probably more just down on Sean McGinty.
I think you were right, Duncan. I think we stick with the same player in a different jersey. I mean, it's potato for me, like.
Aye, you know, and listen, there's six other guys in the division who are all exactly the same, and they're all fine and good at what they're doing. And the one thing is, don't play into their hands.
Yeah.
And because I tell you, I mean, the other one who's in the same kind of category is Lee Ashcroft. I think he's better than those two, but it's like very, very similar profile again. And what you don't want to do is get into a game of headers with him, because he'll win. And this is where, yeah, I don't think first half against Airdrie we really gave ourselves the best shot at it. Like I don't want to just repeat what we said at the weekend, but it didn't feel like there was a kind of build up and like the way that the best teams kind of dial the pressure up on you, so that even if they don't score, you still feel like you're being kind of pushed back in the game until they do score. It just felt like we were, first half in particular, it was like, ping the ball up to Jack Hamilton, see if he can flick it on for Paul McMullen. And if he does, something might happen. But if he doesn't, we've lost the ball and they've got the ball, and then they're going to get the chance to go and do something. And I didn't feel like we gave ourselves the best shot at making the most of what we've got. And that's the thing that frustrated me the most, was it feels to me like a strategy you would use if you had some injuries and you were like, right, this is the best 11 I can get out there today, and this is the best chance of getting a result using them. But that was like a lot of our first choice players there, and guys like Dylan Easton just not being given the best shot to actually go and influence the game. And listen, part of that's on him, as it always is. The manager can only do so much. But like, I think that was one of our kind of, conversations on Sunday, was that, like, was it more a case of the players didn't perform on the day, or the players not being sent out with the best kind of plan? And I think we kind of went back and forth on that a little bit. In terms of
do you think Hamilton, though? Sorry, just going to, like, on that point of of that direct play, that knocking it up, is that part and parcel at the moment of having Jack Hamilton in the team? Like, can we play the other way with Jack Hamilton up there? Is he mobile enough? Is he going to offer you enough running for it not to become a game where you're looking for him to either hold up or flick on?
I can hear Robbie, like an ethereal presence somewhere behind me, saying Jack Hamilton's not a target man, and that he's kind of better at that, and he's a better football player than just, banging long balls up to him. I suppose, well, kind of two things. Like, basically, I agree with you. I don't think Jack Hamilton suits the kind of Robson plan A in the way that we've seen it in its kind of purest form. Right at the start of the season, when it's just all running all the time. I don't think he does suit that. I don't think many players do. I think that's why we played quite a few games without a striker. Because I don't think most of the time you'd want your striker doing that, basically.
No.
I think
maybe why we didn't sign our number 9.
I think it was basically like, the strikers who've got the quality to play at this level use their other abilities and don't just run about all the time, which is why we had to play a load of attacking midfielders in those roles. And I mean, maybe it does bear repeating that Jack Hamilton's kind of just coming back into this side. And I don't think, like, it wasn't mindless what we were doing at Airdrie, because when he was winning the headers that he was winning, the balls that were being knocked up to him, they were being kind of dropped short of the defence. So it wasn't like he was just in 50-50s with Sean McGinty all the time. If I think about that first half in particular, sort of the football that was taking place, in Airdrie's half, I feel like it was Jack Hamilton winning headers almost like 40 yards from goal, with the idea being that he's flicking it down for McMullen to then run at the defence. And there is a lot of sense in that. I just don't think it really worked. I think it's too much like single point of failure kind of idea. Because you're knocking that ball up and it's like, right, he needs to win this header and get it to Paul McMullen and probably land it just in front of him so he's taking it on the run. And that's a big, big ask. And it's kind of like, well, to your point, how much more, or what else is he going to do effectively if you're giving him that kind of starting point, kind of 40 yards out? Because what we weren't doing, and again, you made this point on Sunday, is like flashing crosses into the box for him, which is where he should actually be kind of at his best. Were you kind of building up to an argument of taking Jack Hamilton back out the starting 11 again? Is that where you were going with it?
Actually, no. I'm not. Funnily enough, I'm not. I just, my worry is that, I don't even know how to put it. My worry is that has like Robson decided that the only way to play with Jack Hamilton is this direct, because the two seem to have correlated with he's what we play direct to for the most part. Mind you, that's maybe not fair because the first half of St Johnstone he wasn't playing, but it does seem to be this kind of aim for him directly. And I've said already, like I don't think his hold up plays good enough for that to be his role. I don't think he's mobile enough to do the other job. Actually, I'm back to the only way we can really play with Jack Hamilton up front is if we put crosses into the box. And that kind of then lends itself to, well, what does your shape become? So you probably stick with the two wing backs to get the crosses into the box, or you go 4-2-3-1 and you're using McMullen out wide looking for those crosses. But it's like, do you build the team? Do you build a team for the back forward, or do you start with what you've got up front that you want to happen, and then I think this is where I got to after I actually listened. I never normally listen back to the podcast when I'm on it, but I listened back to the conversation that we both had, and I was like, actually, yeah, it's that thing of, if you want Jack Hamilton to be successful, do you then set your team up in a way to make him successful? And that's what I think actually was missing on Sunday. Is it whether it's him or whether it's McMullen or whoever we decide is the player that, or the two or three players that need to be. But it did feel like actually the system we played on Sunday didn't suit three or four of them.
Yeah.
Like, it didn't get the best out of them.
Scott, are we, and by we I mean everyone, and I'm including Barry Robson in this, are we on a very long road to finding our way back to playing 4-2-3-1 again? Like, that it does... I think you and I agree on this anyway, but like ultimately, is that the system that suits more of our players than any other?
Yes, it is. And as Blair was talking there, I just remembered that I hadn't put a lineup sort of for this preview, so I was just kind of scribbling one up, and as I was doing it, and you've just brought up is how I've put it as a 4-2-3-1 of how I would go about this Arbroath game. But as I've said it a few times this season, that I think that we do need to have two or three formations depending on who we're playing. Because at the start of the season, as I say, everybody, before you see a ball kicked, who's doing what, you can't take much to the League Cup group stage, is that there was three teams that I was wanting to change 4-2-3-1 to a back three, and that was Ayr, Ross County and St Johnstone, because they were the three that I kind of feared that the 4-2-3-1 might not quite work, and I would rather have sort of somebody extra in the midfield or get that extra centre half in just to make sure. But against Arbroath, that's no the formation that I want to be seeing, especially at home as well. Maybe you can change it up if you think that either Arbroath are on great form if you went up to Gayfield, or if the weather's terrible and you just want, if you're worried that it could be quite a sort of aerial battle with Todorov, then you might want that extra centre half on. I get it, but for me, I think you've got to go back to a back four, and as we like anyway, me and you, Duncan, a 4-2-3-1 is the way that I would go about it this weekend.
So I think I'll come back to you on that, Blair, because it is. I find this interesting. I don't know how many other people do. I'm glad we do. So this again, I think, was one of the issues at Airdrie, and I realised we drew the game, we dominated the game, we didn't get a goal that we could have easily got. I'm not overreacting to that, or at least I'm trying not to. I think there was a fundamental disconnect between the way that the kind of back three forward was kind of laid out and the players who were in it. So the biggest one, I think we spoke about this, was Ewan Wilson, who just didn't look comfortable doing what you would need your wing back to do. Now, that's actually the only time we've seen him, so not a big body of evidence. Either that's his game, or not his game, to the point, or that's the instructions that he had. Either way, I didn't think it really worked. And J. Rowe, to a slightly lesser extent on the other side. So this is what, when you start looking at, right, okay, we didn't win a game, how do we improve for the next week? That to me is the kind of natural starting point. And either you put Lewis Stevenson back in, who I don't think is necessarily the most outstanding wing back in the world, but he knows what he's doing. He knows where to play and where to be. Or you go to the 4, in which case you could play either Stevenson or Wilson. I don't really have any great issue with that. But I think you have to pick one or the other and then kind of go from there. It feels like we're just a little bit disjointed. It feels like Robson's picking different parts of the team at different times, if you know what I mean. Like, gets up Tuesday morning, worries about his defence, and then like Wednesday afternoon he thinks about what he wants his forwards to do, and it just ends up a little bit disjointed. And again, I'm exaggerating for effect there, obviously, but it didn't seem to all kind of come together as a kind of cohesive thing. And I think that's why I like the 4-2-3-1, is everybody knows what their job is. Like, you can just see, like, yeah, there's your back 4. You know what you're doing. You get 2 midfielders. One's a little bit more advanced than the other. Fine. You've then got 3 attacking players, and then you've got a boy at the top to try and put the ball in the goal. One final thing I will say, though, is actually, I think the 3 at the back that we've got can still be really useful in a lot of games. And to your point, Scott, about some games you want your 3, some games you want your 4, I think we're almost uniquely well suited to be even more versatile than you would normally be because of how good Jordan Doherty is.
Yeah.
He's so comfortable that when you're playing your back 3, and we saw this in the second half at Airdrie, it almost doesn't matter because he will play, when you've got the ball, as advanced as a right back would. So you're actually kind of getting the best of both worlds. Presumably, Blair, that at least is part of why you're still comfortable with the back 3.
Yeah, actually, the more I look at it, it's not as much about the back as it is about the front. I feel like I keep coming back to this Jack Hamilton thing because I just feel like there's a player in there. I feel like there's and we've seen it. Do you know what I mean? There's a goal scorer in there. And I just wonder if we just don't use him properly. Do you know what I mean? It's like we've just not read the instruction manual and we didn't actually came up what we're meant to be doing with them. And I don't think he suits a 4-2-3-1. Certainly not the 4-2-3-1 we're going to play, for the simple reason that our 4-2-3-1 doesn't provide enough width on the left because you're going to use Easton on the left and he's not going to stay there. He's going to be constantly coming back inside. And so your only width really at that point probably is McMullen, and therefore it's a little bit easier to cancel out. And as good as McMullen is, and I actually genuinely think he is really good out wide, I'm not sure that makes up for what we could have with the 3 at the back. Because the 3 at the back, and actually the more we've talked about this, the more I think this actually all hinges on Sean Byrne playing in the midfield, is that you use your wing backs properly. Because there's basically that 2 schools of thought of the way you use your wing backs. You either want them hitting the byline and bombing on, or you use them, Hamilton away last season, that model of get the ball cross from deep, cross it early, don't let them set up, or you're not necessarily crossing, but you're playing those clipped balls in behind for somebody quick to run onto. And I think that's where we've got the personnel to actually make the 3 at the back work better for us. I think where your argument is absolutely true, if it doesn't suit the majority of our squad, is it's probably our midfield and the number of kind of Paul McMullen, Richard Chin, Dylan Easton, Lewis Vaughan, similar type players that we have, you can't play them all at once. So you're inherently going to have to make some relatively difficult choices about who gets to play and who doesn't. But I think if you kind of look at it as where do I think we can hit Arbroath? So you look at the Dunfermline game, almost all the goals came from crosses into the box. There weren't crosses in the air, but they were all crosses in and into the box, and either a decent finish or picking up scraps. And so where is Jack Hamilton most likely to be effective? He's probably most likely to be effective inside the 18-yard box. If you pick him out, doesn't have to be a header. In fact, he's actually arguably better attacking-wise, goals-wise, not in the air. I mean, I was thinking about this the other day. The goal at Queen's Park that he scored the header for the Scott McGill cross, but there's not been like a huge body of, big guy scores lots of big headers. He's not. He scores some decent goals. He's a good finisher. And I think if we can use the wing backs better and have them not bombing on and trying to hit the byline, but actually crossing the ball a little bit earlier, playing the ball in behind a little bit quicker, for the quicker boys to run onto. So you're playing it early for a McMullen to run onto, and then he's maybe got a cut back to Jack Hamilton, or you are actually crossing the ball properly, and it's Jack Hamilton attacking the ball, and then you've got McMullen bouncing about him, Dylan Easton bouncing about him, picking up scraps. I think that's where we can get the most joy out of it. I don't think we can do that with the four at the back, simply because of the wingers. We've got one, really, or we have two or three, but they all play on the same side. Like, he's only going to play one at a time.
Yeah, what we don't really have is like a kind of chalk on the boots winger, like orthodox winger, kind of like a sort of Josh Mullen 5 years ago kind of type, who's just going to stand on his touchline and just kind of whip crosses in wherever you give him the ball from.
McMullen's potentially the only one we do have. We didn't use him like that.
Well, I think that's the thing. If you sort of picture the average Paul McMullen attack from the wing, it's kind of hitting the byline and cutting it back, which, as you say, is actually that's kind of where Dunfermline's joy came against Arbroath. It's not a bad thing at all. And like Richard Chin's kind of similar. He's always, if anything, is almost more direct. Like, doesn't matter where you give him the ball, he's going to run at the goal more often than not, as opposed to, as you say, sort of staying wide and kind of firing crosses in. I don't disagree with anything you said there, shockingly, against type. And I think so I was lining up an argument, which is when you're talking about the fact that like Jack Hamilton's not necessarily just someone you want to be, playing in the air. If anything, he's better finishing if you can get the ball into his feet. The sort of argumentative line I was going to take was, well, is Lewis Vaughan not better at that? Like, that's very much what he's very, very good at. But actually, to be slightly less argumentative, that seems like a good thing, because that then should mean that you should be able to play the whole strategy for the 90 minutes. And actually, when you swap them in, it's fine, as opposed to, again, what we saw on Saturday, which was that Hamilton went off, and then we started playing long balls to Lewis Vaughan. And you're like, oh, this is all completely backwards. I mean, the one thing I would say to that is, like, I know what you mean about when Easton's always coming inside, that changes the dynamic, and it's a different story for the defence. I'm not quite sure I completely subscribe to it in the way that it happened the season that Dario Zanata had that real purple patch. I can't for the life of me think who was on the other side now.
It'd be Connolly.
I think Connolly must be missing for a bit, because there was a period where it was somebody who wasn't very good.
Right.
And the reason I'm saying that, no, exactly, was because Dario Zanata's purple patch ran out when teams realised, we only need to defend one of these sides. Like, because we were just trying to get the ball down Dario's side for him to cut in and try and get those shots away.
Was
which,
that
as you
the
say,
season that we had Fotheringham on loan?
Possibly.
But again,
Would
I'm
have
not
been.
sure how many games he started.
Yeah, he got injured really quickly.
I'm sure.
I can't remember.
Because it must have. Well, I'm just thinking that 4-4 draw with Hamilton, which
That's
is
the
like
game
peaks
that
and
made me
that.
think of fathering him because he should have scored the winner.
Yeah, but it was Connolly that started.
Yeah, because Connor's obviously who you want on that, because that's both
Totally.
sides almost like an equal threat. Which I
Say
think
it wasn't
this.
it. It wasn't James Keaton's.
And it'll not be anytime soon either, for multiple reasons. But no, the point I was going to make with that is, I think actually, I don't think you need to necessarily have two orthodox wingers. I think Easton, although he's doing something completely different, and even if he's coming inside, is still enough of a threat. And I think what you get with that as well is both Paul McMullen and Dylan Easton are prepared to go in and mix it as well. So if you are overcooking crosses or whatever, they will appear as the kind of second man in the box or third man in the box. Which, again, I think using them as wide players and telling them to be wide might actually help. If you think about the number of overhit crosses that we had on Saturday as well.
Oh, it was bad.
You'd think we could beat 6-0 on Saturday, that we were talking about.
I know.
But it just it felt really, really kind of uncohesive. And I think we just. I think there's actually there's loads of different ways you could go about it. I think this is actually the luxury of having lots of really good players.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there's anybody that we're like, what the hell, I hope we don't play this guy. Like, I think we're really all quite happy with all the players that we've got. It's just about finding a system that works for them. Scott, in terms of the strikers for this, would you be sticking with Hamilton? Would you be bringing Vaughan back in, having had a rest last week? Or would you be trying to get them both on the park at the same time from the start?
In my lineup that I put in earlier tonight, anyway, I've decided to go with Vaughan over Hamilton. Again, I agree to that. I think that Jack Hamilton, there is definitely a player there. There's definitely a goal scorer there, because we've seen it when he was at Arbroath. And if anything, I can imagine that David Gold and Colin Hamilton will certainly know what Jack Hamilton could do. So I think I just, going with the way that I was going about earlier, saying how I would rather that we're kind of playing more football on the deck, 1-2s, that sort of intricate passing and stuff. I've just went Vaughan just ahead of Hamilton, but again, I agree with you saying that it's not the worst thing if we just continue to play like we do when we switch them, maybe at like 70 minutes or 65 minutes or whatever. If Hamilton's to come on, then just keep playing the same way that you're doing with Vaughan, because I think Hamilton can play that way as well. It's just we seem to change up every week how we play Jack Hamilton. One week we play direct as anything, the next week we try and play into his chest, then it's the next week, no, actually we'll try on the deck this week. And it's like, well, you need some consistency for the guy to actually go on a run. But it just seems to change all the time. But yeah, and for me, it's just the one striker anyway, because of playing a 4-2-3-1. That's the formation, obviously, that I would be going with for Saturday. So you could technically play Vaughan in like a 10 position and put Hamilton up top, but for me, I've just decided to put Hamilton on the bench and Vaughan up top.
I've been writing a line up there, and I'm conflicted on a few points actually. Blair, you kind of alluded to it there, but I take it almost regardless of whatever other changes you're making. Sean Byrne is back in your 11.
Yeah, Yeah, I think I want to play. I want to play. If I was picking the team, which I'm not, but I'm sticking with the three at the back. I think the three of them have been really solid. I want Byrne back in because I think he just offers you the freedom to let your wing backs do what you need them to do without having to constantly worry about looking over their shoulder, or at least one at a time anyway, because he just fills in that gap. I think he also frees up our midfield to just be a bit better. he's probably the one player in the squad out with the back three that has the kind of discipline to stay in that position and hold it in a way that doesn't nullify him as a player, I think is what I'm trying to say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
so
yeah.
like Scott Brown, I think, can do the job.
Yeah, you could tell him to stand and not go anywhere, but yeah.
But you're wasting Scott Brown. Like, you're not getting the best out of him. You could ask Ross Matthews to do it, but actually Ross Matthews is far better when he's running about the park like a madman. You need that, putting players in the positions that brings the best out of them. And I think asking Sean Byrne to do that really boring kind of destroyer, just go in and take the ball to feet, roll the ball out, let them go in and do it, brings the best out of him, and it definitely brings the best out of everybody around him. And I think, as I say, it frees up that wing back idea, and then you've got the option of those, like I say, those earlier crosses and earlier balls, which definitely leads me to the two changes at wing back. For me, Lewis Stevenson definitely comes back in, and it's a proven fact we have not scored since Josh Mullen got sent off. So Josh Mullen comes back in for me as well at right wing back. I think his delivery was sorely missed on Saturday. Corners, free kicks, balls into the box. Yeah, I want to see him back in just to get that. I want Arbroath playing on their heels, and whether that be Paul McMullen running in behind them, or actually, to be fair, it's the only position where I've got a slash, and it's McMullen / Chin. I think Chin did enough on Saturday to warrant a start, but I don't think you play the two of them. I want a striker, so for me it was Hamilton. Just because I think Vaughan, probably as good as he is, he doesn't have that discipline of staying up front. He always wants to drop deep. He wants to get the ball, and it's to his credit. It's what he's good at. I don't think sticking him up front on his own as a striker brings the best out of him either. And I don't think asking Jack Hamilton to come and try and play tappy football on the edge of the box brings the best out of him. I'm very much want to get everybody doing the jobs they're good at, and see if we can get a combination of 11 where they all work together, kind of thing.
It's interesting. I've got a really similar kind of lineup, except on a lot of those kind of 50-50s, I've just gone the other way.
Yeah.
Again, a shocking development, obviously.
Yeah.
I got kind of starting from the same point, which is, I think the back three are great, basically.
Yeah.
Almost more so as individuals than anything else. I think they're all playing well, doing very well. To your point, all know their jobs, are all almost playing in their most natural positions.
Yep.
So, great. That's a real if it ain't broke, don't fix it kind of thing for me. So, starting from there, you're completely right. I think you need Stevenson back in. Or if it's Wilson, he needs to be told to do something very different. This is very kind of damning, but there was shades of James Brown, I thought, in that performance where it was like, he's not done anything wrong.
Yeah.
Not done anything right either. Just done
totally.
Completely the bang
Beige.
average thing to do every single time. Now that's not me writing him off by any means at all. But if you're gonna play wing back, you need to do wing backy things.
Yeah, totally.
So either he gets a totally different set of instructions and carries them out, or more likely, as I say, I think Stevenson comes back in. On the other side, I've kept J-Rowe. I would like to see more of J-Rowe. Probably more so based on a combination of just kind of blind optimism and kind of vibes. Although if it turns out that he is great, I'm going to call it intuition. I think he's decent. But as I say, we've not really seen it. I still have quite high hopes for J-Rowe, and I'd like to see a little bit more of him. I totally get your argument for bringing Josh Mullen back in, though, and I'm not actually opposed to it. But I would keep J-Rowe. 100% Sean Byrne needs to be back in for me. Actually, regardless, you could basically pick any formation you like. I think Sean Byrne has to play for exactly the reason you said. I think Spoke a lot last season about how Sam Stanton was the kind of only guy who did his job in the team.
Yeah.
And when he wasn't available, we really missed him because we couldn't sort of recreate it. I think Sean Byrne's exactly the same. It's a different job, but he's the only guy who does his job. And when we don't play him, you can see that person is missing. Maybe notably, because I think you'll be the same, it's Scott Brown who drops out for me.
Yeah, same.
And again, I think we talked about this a little bit on Sunday, where I think you'd probably have to say, on balance, if you were sort of rating the two players overall, if you were doing like FIFA cards or whatever, I don't know what that is anymore. I think Scott Brown would have like a slightly higher number than Ross Matthews would from a kind of like neutralised standpoint. But on form, I think Ross Matthews is actually a fair bit ahead this season. So I'd keep Ross Matthews in, but with Sean Byrne. I also have Richard Chinnan ahead of Paul McMullen. Mostly because I thought what we did well in the second half on Saturday, was that right-hand side. So I'm keen to see more of Doherty, Rowe, Chin, but possibly with a bit of Sean Byrne in the background as well that they didn't have. Keen to see that. And then at Easton, and I've got Vaughan. Again, I just think sort of fundamentally, I think Lewis Vaughan scores more goals than Jack Hamilton does. And I don't think we've been scoring enough goals. So I'd kind of rather just go really kind of basic and go, that guy tends to score more goals, so let's have him on the park, please. And then it's swap him when necessary. To go back to the point from the start, I think this is a bigger game than it should be. Kind of in the court of public opinion, more so than in reality. And I mean, how much does that matter? I don't really know. But I think Barry Robson has something of a PR problem in a way that I think other managers or other personalities could have exactly the same set of results that he's had since he came in, with a kind of different feel about the place. And I think he kind of needs to beat Arbroath at home just to kind of push that little bubble of noise away again. And maybe that's not fair, and maybe that's, again, kind of an outsized feel from a fairly small sample size. But I just think, tonally, I think he kind of needs a result. And in reality, in the dressing room, within the club, do they feel like that? I mean, probably not, and that's what matters. But for the kind of feel in the stand, that's just the kind of inkling I've got.
I think that's quite worrying, though. I actually have to say, again, the listeners have been waiting for this. I agree, completely. But why? Like, I don't. I don't know. I think it's. Can we honestly get to the stage where 2 or 3 bad, mediocre results as a Wraith Rovers manager is going to be enough to turn the crowd a bit? I'm not. Maybe that I agree with you. It's probably not as bad as that, but there is that feeling, and I'm like, if he wins 4 on the bounce, and then loses a couple, does it come back after the 2 losses again? Do you know what I mean? Does it ever go away? Like,
well, I mean, this is the thing. This is why it's so odd. Like, because it's sort of ephemeral. I think, like it's a vibe. It's a kind of atmosphere that's there, and it's really difficult to put your finger on. And like, I don't think it does take much to make it go away. I think you basically, if you win 4 games in the bounce, I think it does go away completely, and like that's basically fine. It's how often do you win 4 games on the bounce, and it just, as I say, I'm not saying I agree with it or it's how I feel. It's a feeling I get from the kind of wider support. And it's just, as I say, I just think that it's if we get beat, basically, it's not going to be the reaction of, listen, we were joint second and we get beat to the other team that's joint second. These things happen. That's just not going to be the response that you get.
I could be completely wrong as well, but just on that really quickly, I think he's aware of it. The amount of times that he says in his interview, the fans have been great with me since I've come in. Fans have really taken to me. The fans have really... It's like, I don't know. I don't know if he's trying to convince us it's true or unconvince himself that it's true. But I thought it was really telling, the end of the interview. I actually had missed it the first time I listened. But I went back. I meant to say it on Sunday. I went back and listened to it again on Sunday morning before the show. And the last thing that Davey said was like, all right, aye. Or, sure, we'll give you that. It was one of those kind of, I think you're wrong there, Barry. And I think you know it.
It's, I don't know, it's fun, because obviously, like, back end of last season, we get into a rammy about interviews and all that kind of stuff. And actually, I enjoy his interviews. I don't think it's... He's not great when we get beat. And I don't think that'll change. Like, he's but
stubborn.
I mean, generally, I think he's kind of settled into them. Actually, and again, I know we kind of sing his praises all the time, but it's deserved. A lot of that, I think, is Davy Hancock, to be fair.
Yeah.
I think they now have a very good relationship. And so Barry Robson has settled into those interviews because he's like, look, this guy knows his stuff, knows what he's doing, isn't trying to catch me out, isn't going to ask me stupid questions, which must be a big fear as a manager as well. Because you're in a new job, you know how important those interviews are going to be to your perception. Imagine it matters a lot who's doing them, and you have to kind of settle into that. So that's what I mean. It's like it would actually be easier if every week he was coming out and saying stupid stuff. It would be easier to be like, well, that's why there's this kind of feeling in the background. But yeah, and listen, if we win 5-0, it'll be fine. It's the what if we don't, because, and again, it's the kind, I think it's the kind of disjointed nature of the football as much as anything.
Yeah.
But aye, we'll see. We'll talk about it after the game if we get beat, and if we don't, we won't mention it at all. Everyone will be fine. And we'll get back to just making smart arse comments about whichever defender's falling on his arse. Right, so this was supposed to be a sort of streamlined preview episode. So we're like, we've not got a Should Mix Day or Should There Go. So like, we'll get it done nice and quickly. We're basically an hour anyway, so that is just an unavoidable truth, I'm afraid. Before we do go though, just a reminder that there is a food bank collection at Starks Park on Saturday. This time it is a particular focus on toiletries and all these kind of bathroom goods. So if you do have the means to do so, please drop something off with the guys at the top of the ramp on the way in. And of course, we will be back over the weekend at some point to talk about whatever happens and what the vibes are after it as well. So we'll speak to you then. Thank you for listening. Goodbye.